Now, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not your average guy. And what I mean by that is I'm not the least bit interested in sports. Seriously, I couldn't care less. Not that I think there's anything wrong with sports. It's just sports don't interest me. I mean, generally, the only reason why I know who wins the Stanley Cup or the World Series is when I hear other men talking about them. So it may seem rather odd that I, of all people, would be doing a video on the demise of female sports, but stay with me to the end as I explain why. For decades now, our cultural elites have been forcing upon us this idea that there are no differences between men and women, that any perceived differences are only the result of sexism, the patriarch, and good old-fashioned white male privilege. And so over the years, I've half entertained the idea that if these elites were really so serious about this, then why aren't they doing anything about sports, especially professional sports? Why all this sexism? Why this division between male and female athletes? Why not just let men and women compete against each other? Well, these elites never advocate this because even they know what would happen, that with perhaps a few rare exceptions, men would completely dominate to the point where women wouldn't even bother trying. Now, again, as I said, I've never been serious about such an idea because, after all, men would never be allowed to compete against women. Right? Well, we're starting to hear more and more stories, from wrestling matches to weightlifting competitions to track events. Men identifying as women are being allowed to compete in female events with predictable results. Probably the most disturbing story that I've heard is that of a mixed martial arts fight where a man identifying as a woman beat up his opponent, his female opponent, so badly that he sent her to the hospital with a fractured skull. And afterwards, when the female athlete was asked why she lost so badly, she said, well, she didn't know. She didn't know whether it was because this woman was born a man at birth. Really? Seriously? This woman didn't know why she lost so badly? Why she was sent to the hospital with a fractured skull? Of course she knew. But she couldn't state the obvious because that would be discriminating. She'd get kicked out of the league. Because this man identifying as a woman had more rights than she did. And this is what's happening with all these stories. Female athletes cannot complain because these men identifying as women have more rights than they do. Now, normally I know how I want to end off a video, but with such an absurd topic, I really don't know, other than to say that the link up above for those of you watching on YouTube is a video I did a couple months ago on why there's only two genders. And for those of you on Facebook, I'll put the link in the comments below. I highly encourage you to watch that. If this is your first time, please do consider subscribing and or liking and following my Facebook page. Hope to see you next Thursday.